Good morning and welcome to the December 2020 edition of the Ask Me Anything teleconference. We're glad you all could join us this morning. We have State Treasurer Dale Folwell here. He is going to give some opening remarks and then he'll entertain any and all questions that you have.
Good morning, everyone. Happy holidays. Thank you for joining us. This is our 47th Ask Me Anything over the last 4 years, and we appreciate your participation. We've got a lot of topics to talk about, but yesterday a couple of things happened that I want to make you aware of, both positive. One is that we had a very productive meeting with the League of Municipalities, the County Commissioner Association, executive directors, as well as the state auditor, some staff from the Treasurer's Office, Greg Gaskins, who's been the head of the Local Government Commission, as well as who retired yesterday, and Sharon Edmondson, who is taking over that role. And later on, because of how all this ultimately impacts the funding for public education, Superintendent-elect Catherine Truitt joined us. A very productive conversation about how we can work more closely with the County Commissioner Association, the League of Municipalities, the School of Government, and our office to help these distressed communities in rural North Carolina, especially eastern rural North Carolina. Secondly, as I just mentioned, it was Greg Gaskins last day, who was the finance director of the city of Charlotte, actually worked for Treasurer Bowles. And so if you think of the bookends of working with Treasurer Bowles and myself, that's quite an experience. Be glad to take any questions. The pension plan crossed $112 billion yesterday for the first time in state history. We remain in the check delivery business. We're currently in the midst of our 5-year review, which is required to look at the actuarial assumptions of the pension plan going forward. And that was another reason we were meeting with the cities and the counties, because other than OSBM and the legislature, the other two largest funders of these pension plans are the cities and counties. And anytime that we are going to be more realistic about what the long-term return expectations are for our pension plan, it requires us to work in partnership with the league and the county commissioners. So with that, let's go ahead and start, Dan, with the questions.
Thank you, Treasurer. As you know, those of you who've been on the call before, we just have a kind of a round robin here, so we'll just throw it open to questions. If there's anyone who has a question, just identify yourself and ask away.
Hey, Treasurer Folwell, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hey, this is Lynn Bonner from Policy Watch. I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about the distressed communities and the distressed utilities, and just give some background on that, and whether the Local Government Commission is going to submit applications to cover operating deficits for those utilities. If you can talk about how each of those entities is going to use its grant, and if this would be the first use of the liability utility reserve.
Yeah. I'll try to answer those. Welcome and congratulations on your new gig.
Thank you.
What's happening in rural North Carolina, especially eastern rural North Carolina, is not a revolution. It's an evolution. This has been evolving for a very long period of time. And it goes down to some things that are at the 30,000 foot level and some things that are at the 8 feet below the ground level. So I guess what I'll try to do in answering your questions is to make sure that our role as at the Local Government Commission, which was formed after the bankruptcy of Asheville, after the Depression, was to facilitate and work with these communities, whether it's the county operations, the city operations, or the water and sewer operations, to make sure that they're financially viable. Now, that relates back to a couple of things. For example, we got involved earlier this year with Terrell County. Lynn, you may know that earlier this year I was the drive-through commencement speaker at the only high school in that county, Columbia High School. There were 38 graduates. You may also know that the number of people in that county is less than the student faculty population at Myers Park High School. As Chairman Everett once told me, the county commissioners, they may have more bears there than they have people. But what you may not know is that half the property of that county doesn't pay property taxes. And what I'm sure you would may be news to you is that between St. Patrick's Day and July 4th of this year, their sales tax revenue fell 26%. So how in the hell do you fund public education, public safety, public roads, and public works, given the context of how I just laid this out? And so, and the issue we dealt with earlier this year was not an act of COVID or an act of God. It was an act of the state that put their water and sewer finances, something the state did this time last year literally blew a 30-foot hole into the finances of their water and sewer system that almost they came within 24 hours of defaulting on their debt in the spring of this year. And we're seeing these kinds of situations all over the place for a couple of different reasons. And I'll be glad to answer any follow-up question you have in case I didn't answer your question. Number one is that this is it's a very serious matter to have accessible, affordable, high quality water and sewer in all parts of our state. Number two, you may not know that the water in Terrell County was voted last year the fifth highest quality water in the United States, not just in North Carolina, in the United States. So that gives you an idea of just how good they are in their reverse osmosis system. But what's happening across the state is that these water and sewer systems, a lot of these areas are depopulating. As these areas depopulate, the fixed costs of running these systems is spread among fewer people, many of whom are low income and fixed income individuals, which makes this whole vortex even worse. Secondly, for example, in Elizabeth City, when they go to repair a water and sewer line in Elizabeth City, and my numbers may be just a little off here, when they go to repair a water and sewer line in Elizabeth City, it costs $268 a foot because of how high the water table is. I may have that backwards, but how high the water table is. So when they start digging on anything, as they're trying to repair something that has to do with water and sewer, they hit water. For example, I understand that it costs $112 a foot to do that similar kind of repair in Wake County. And then when you get to the mountains, we're seeing situations, especially with cost overruns on engineering cost and pump cost, because it takes more pumping to pump water and sewer in the mountains than it does on the flatlands. They are facing their own unique challenges. So I guess to kind of summarize, and I'm sure you'll have a follow-up question, is to say, what are we doing about this? What we're doing about it is that we're drawing attention to it. You can't have you can't have a state with just a strong torso, being the triad, the triangle, and Mecklenburg County. You also have to have strong legs and arms. And part of the economic development of some of these rural communities who have been eviscerated over the last 30 years has to do with accessible, affordable water and sewer, good public education, access to quality, low-cost health care, and electricity rates. And those are the four things that I'm going to focus on for as long as I'm the state treasurer.
Thanks for that. I was wondering if you can tell me whether this would be the first use of the viability utility reserve that the legislature set up.
It would be.
Okay, got it.
And it's done in conjunction with and another reason why we met with the county commissioners and the league yesterday, it's done in conjunction with our partnership with DEQ. So there's an application process, there's a scoring process, and then there's the awarding process.
Thank you.
Did you have another question, Lynn?
Do you have any details on how each of these towns is going to use its money, or should I follow up later with that? I'm just curious what they would be proposing to do with their funds.
I don't have those details, but I think this is the first time not the first time you've joined us in 4 years, but it's on this topic is the first time. We will, it's those uses of those funds are still under review, but we have a policy on the Ask Me Anything calls that somebody will respond back to your question by close of business today, at least to acknowledge that you've asked the question and to let you know what the procedure and protocol will be.
Great, thanks, I appreciate that. And you control the finances of Eureka and the Cliffside Sanitary District already, is that right?
And Robersonville. I mean,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, I wanted to add, because you asked the question about what the money is going to be used for, and I want to take just a moment of personal privilege to talk about how valuable Greg Gaskins, who just retired yesterday, has been in this whole process, not just with this, but the historical charter process for some of the cities across North Carolina. We have some cities that have no function and they don't collect taxes. They're just called cities. So we're working closely with them to figure out how we get the historical charter legislation passed, number one. And number two, going back to your earlier question, and this is the real point I wanted to make to you, is that granting people money that doesn't solve the problem and fix it on a timeless basis going forward is not something we're interested in. An accomplishment is an accomplishment for only as long as it lasts. And we want to put these folks in these communities in a situation to succeed, not to just as a Band-Aid to come back. And some of that involves merging and putting together on a larger scale some waters and sewer systems that may be also in the county, for example, and some of this money can be used to find synergies between those water and sewer systems across those communities.
Yes, I was just wondering whether some of that grant money was going to be used to study mergers.
Yes, and
Okay.
and if you want somebody to focus on, I want to tell you one of the highlights of my year this year was when Mayor Tina Brown came in, who's the mayor of Robersonville, came into our local government commission meeting 4 weeks ago today. And, as I was trying to budget my time, because, on Tuesday we have the local government commission, we have the council of state, we have Ask Me Anything, and that's just 3 of the 18 things that I do on a Tuesday. And I was trying to budget my time, and people thought that, because of what the local government commission was voting on regarding the taking over of the finances of Robersonville, that it was going to be a very long, contentious meeting. And this person, who I've never met in my life, came in with the grace, the class, the courage, and the thankfulness of what we're trying to do to partner with her town so that she herself, as the mayor of the town, can figure out what's happening with the state, with their finances. And it's like I said, it's one of the highlights of my life, because we're not in the business of NO, we're in the business of KNOW. And I can speak for everybody at the treasurer's office, especially at LGC. I can say that every time that somebody comes to LGC, and it's because we're trying to help them. And the class and the courage that this newly elected mayor, who had probably no idea what she was getting into as far as the finances of that community, the way that she approached the LGC was just one of the highlights of my year. And her name is Mayor Tina Brown.
Thank you, Treasurer Folwell.
Anything else, Lynn?
Oh, no, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks. Good questions. We have other questions from some of the participants here.
Hi, this is Julie. Thanks so much. I was hoping to get some information on the dollar amount of the grant and who else, how many towns could be in the waiting list.
We'll get that to you. I think I know the answer off the tip of my tongue as far as who's the initial awardees, but I want to, huh? Yeah, we put it out in the press release, but I want to make sure about the dollar amounts and who would be a part of the next tranche.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and the four communities that got it were Eureka. By the way, Lynn, if you're still on the call,
Yeah, I'm still here.
Eureka has the distinction of being the only city in the United States that has an undetonated nuclear bomb within the city limits, because of a tragic accident that happened in the mid '60s, I guess, with a bomber that was coming into Seymour, Johnson, or Pope. But going back to Julie's question, Eureka, Bethel, Kingstown, and Cliffside Sanitary District. And to give you an idea about Cliffside Sanitary District, I guess there used to be a large industrial user of water and sewer in that community, and they're no longer there. And I think they have 64 residents that are on that water and sewer system. And to put that in context with my comments about Terrell County only has, if my memory's right, 1,173 people who are left on the water and sewer system. So when there's a decision by the state to relocate prisoners from Terrell County to Bertie and Pasquotank County, they just threw a 30-foot hole through the finances of that water and sewer system, and that have to be financed on the backs of the 1,175 approximate people who remain on the system. So that's why all this is so critical. As far as the other answer, no grants have been awarded yet. The four recipients have been awarded, but not the actual dollar amount of grants.
Okay, perfect. And leaving Terrell County aside with the prison, you mentioned that you want to see more permanent solutions. What would some of those look like?
In Terrell County, for example, we have 55% of the property of that county that doesn't pay taxes, and there are some examples in North Carolina of situations like this where there's a tax in lieu of, and I think actually the federal government probably gives some kind of tax in lieu payment to Terrell County because they own so much of the land in Terrell County. So just looking at that is obviously very important. I was told when I was giving a speech the other day that there's 27,000 acres in the northern part of Montgomery County that is closest to the populations that are sort of spreading into Montgomery County that doesn't pay taxes. So just looking at this holistically, and having an excitement for those that suffer. I mean, if you can't have an excitement for those that are suffering, you shouldn't be a public servant.
Hey, this is Dave Mildeberg. Can I ask a question there?
Yeah.
I have to cut out at 11, so I'll try to keep it quick, and I don't want to be the hog here. Dale, who's replacing Greg, and what is the person's title?
Great question. The person replacing Greg is Sharon Edmondson, who's I think been with this agency 26 years, She has been the second in command and in charge of one of the, the local government commission does lots of things. We regulate the local governments. We have a whole division that just issues debt. So Sharon has been one of the number 2 people at the LGC, and she's accepted this promotion to take over Greg's duties.
You recently alerted City of Goldsboro that there was issues related to their audit, and they responded, we got a new staff, we're working on it. Are they the largest city that has received such a letter, and can you talk about what's going on there?
And I'm sure you're getting your boroughs correct. Goldsboro, not Wilkesboro?
Goldsboro.
Okay.
Chuck Allen Mayor.
Yeah. I cannot. I've been dealing in the last 14 hours since midnight last night with Wilkesboro on the same issue.
Oh, really? Wow.
On the same issue, but I will get back to you by the close of business about anything going on with Goldsboro.
Yeah, Dave, just so you know, I have a request in. I'm trying to get that information for you already. So as soon as I get that,
I
verify
just
that
thought,
out.
Dale, you might comment. I mean, it's a pretty big city, and I mean, you're talking about little towns with, a couple hundred people. I mean, that's not the story of Wilkesboro or Goldsboro. So it's kind of like, what's going on there?
Well, exactly right. In the Wilkesboro situation, as well as Rhonda and one other city, it's associated with an auditing firm. I think it's based out of Lexington, where I believe the principal person of that firm has been decertified by the North Carolina Board of Examiners. I don't want to. I say that I think that's the case. I don't want to be slandering anyone. And these communities have been sort of putting, they bought the eggs and the flour, and they were trying to put these audits in the oven, and then all of a sudden the person that's doing the audits can't do audits anymore, and it's put them in a real tailspin. But Dave, it does bring to light something the state auditor and we discussed it yesterday in this other big meeting. I mean, the lack of professional auditing services in the governmental side of things is pretty huge. If anybody has a child who wants to know where to go so that they can have business for the rest of their career, it'd be in governmental auditing. And the city of Wilkesboro hasn't, I think if my memory's right, they haven't produced an audit for 17, 18, or 19. And that's also a large community, and I appreciate you drawing a distinction between the small towns and the bigger towns, but we have some small town things going on in the city of Charlotte, in neighborhoods of the city, as you know, Dave. I mean, some of the same pressures that are facing some of these small towns are actually facing communities inside, the 2 biggest cities of North Carolina. So there are pockets of that also, as you know.
Dale, you mentioned that pension topped $112 billion. One of the issues in your campaign was, the criticism that you needed to follow some plan that your opponent thought wasn't being followed. You won resoundingly. Do you look at that as an issue that you have to address, or is it something that you think was kind of a made-up issue for that election?
Well, I think that I'm the best treasurer money can't buy, and a lot of those charges were coming from people who were, in my opinion, trying to buy access back into the treasurer's office. Number one. Number two, you're not the treasurer once every 4 years, or when you wake up and decide you want to be the chief financial officer of the 10th largest state in the country that has more constitutional statutory responsibilities and duties than maybe any other treasurer's office in the whole world. It's something we do every 4 years. And, I got where I am in life by knowing what I don't know, and not only looking at new information, but a better way of looking at old information. But at the end of the day, regarding your specific question, I stand on the shoulders of the people of the investment management division and previous state treasurers who have never gambled or profess to have a crystal ball regarding what the economy was going to do. Because at the end of the day, whether it's people in Charlotte or Winston-Salem or Raleigh or anywhere else in the state, those that taught, protected, or otherwise served at the city, county, or local or the state level, they're somewhat curious about expected returns and actuarial assumptions and AAA bond ratings and life expectancies. But at the end of the day, we're in the check delivery business. And our Moody's designated us as ironically, a year ago, before anybody had heard of COVID, designated this plan as number one in the United States in terms of its ability to stay funded during an economic downturn. Who could have predicted a year ago what we've been through since St. Patrick's Day?
So that's really helpful, and therefore it's kind of no real need for a course correction or a big analysis that'll change your allocation strategy. That's not something that's high in your agenda.
No, I mean, what is high on my agenda is, this plan has $1 billion worth of timber that was bought 14 years ago that hasn't perked. And as well as anybody on this call what the opportunity cost is on $1 billion over 15 years. It's like 2 whole funding points on the whole plan is when $1 billion doesn't perform for 15 years, it's like 200 basis points on the fundedness of the whole plan. So we're keenly focused on that, and these are investments that were made before I got here, but the real estate portfolio, we have things that are doing well in the real estate portfolio, but there is some major concern. There was a over concentration in our real estate portfolio in what I call the smiley face. That's not something that people associate with my demeanor, but it does exist. The smiley face starts in Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas, Austin to some degree, skips over to Atlanta, skips over the Mid-Atlantic and goes up to Washington, New York, and Boston. So smiley face is missing some teeth. But to give you an example, we have real estate in this state, as you know, in Charlotte and Raleigh and other parts of the state that has tripled in the last 10 years. We've had really no exposure, not much exposure to any real estate in North Carolina. My point is that COVID is going to dramatically change commercial real estate, especially office buildings. We asked for a property to Grand Central. Next time you go to New York, state pension plan owns that 100%. It was bought 10 years ago, I guess, and we had to put hundreds of millions of dollars in it to get it to a lease rate. And even before COVID, we had decided to put that property on the market. And obviously, there's nobody going in that building right now. Not many people going in that building. So this concentration in commercial, we don't have a lot of exposure to gaming. We don't have a lot of exposure to retail. We don't have a lot of exposure to hotels. But any dollar that we lose in the pension plan from any of these asset classes is obviously something that's very important. And the lumber situation, you see what's happened to the price of lumber. Go buy a 2x4 at Lowe's tomorrow. It's just it's just crazy. And why we're not getting the stump prices, so to speak. I don't know where the margin's going, but we should be. I'm sure there's some little funny quip I can say here, but it's just not coming to me. I just can't imagine that we're not able to equitize and monetize our timber portfolio. Those of you who are familiar with where the Sewanee is, the University of the South, when you're going up the Cumberland Knob, we own 119,000 acres leading up to the University of the South. If you were to go down 48 miles north and west of Orlando, you come up across Cross City, Florida. We own 123,000 acres in Cross City, Florida. And We own it from Raymond, Oregon to Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And for this timber portfolio not to be generating more yield is just amazing to me right now.
Hey, thank you for taking our questions, and thank you for having that Facebook account this morning. That paid off, so appreciate it.
Well, I'll just, since nobody wants me to politicize anything, as I've said earlier, if you can put 24 people on a school bus, you can sure as hell figure out how to put 10 council of state members in a 600 square foot room. We have to be willing to come together and talk about these important issues as people of this state are facing the highest levels of job, food, health, and now educational insecurity and uncertainty. Education, Superintendent of Public Instruction. Food, Secretary of Agriculture. Unemployment, Jobs, Secretary of Labor. I mean, all these things come into the constitutionally appointed and elected Council of State. And it's not a political comment to say that we need to be having toothbrush meetings. That means you don't know how long you're going to be there. You should bring your toothbrush because it could last a while. The issues facing the people of this state, I mean, I'm seeing it financially. I'm seeing it. It's happening right in front of me. And I think the ability for the Council of State to meet in person, to be socially distanced, and for the meeting not to be adjourned by the hitting of a button is very important. And I appreciate the accolades about Facebooking that this morning. I've had my own issues with getting on the Council of State, and I am a member of the Council of State. That could have something to do with my technological skills, but the fact is that reporters and all kinds of folks were having trouble and have had trouble continuously. And that's why we do this, and we're going to do Facebook Live every Council of State meeting from now on.
Thanks, Dave. I'm wondering, Ginger Livingston, have you been able to join us yet? Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for the treasurer?
Yes, this is Dustin George with Shelby Star.
Hey, Dustin.
Can you talk a little bit about, just going back to the distressed county designation, can you talk at all about the specifics of any of the counties, like how they were selected for this initial round of designation and sort of what some of the issues they might be, that the local government commission has seen with their systems there?
Okay. Hey, Justin, thanks for joining us. So your question has a lot of different combinations to it. Number one is, Dustin, I apologize, is that if you're talking about water and sewer systems, that would be one answer. If you're talking about the county as a whole, that'd be another answer. But basically, as I talked about earlier, this has not been a revolution like it just happened. This has been evolving, as you know, Dustin, for a long period of time. And some of these communities, for example, I think I'm accurate in saying this, Wilkes County hasn't depopulated, but the per capita income of Wilkes County has gone down dramatically because of the relocation of Lowe's headquarters to the Lake Norman area. So it's not just the depopulating of an area, it's the lowering of the per capita income that's putting a lot of pressure on these communities. And as far as the criteria, now if you're going back to the grants that we talked about earlier, the criteria were developed by the local government commission here at the Treasurer's Office and the State Water Infrastructure Authority. That's who developed the criteria. But as far as what we call the unit assistance list, we have over approximately 150 of the 1,300 entities that are currently on the unit assistance list, but they're on there for different reasons. For example, it's ironic we're talking about Wilkesboro and their audit, but one reason Wilkesboro could be on the unit assistance list is because and we're grateful for this, they are so levered. They have the lowest water and sewer rates in North Carolina, but they're so levered into the fact they have one industry that is such a huge buyer of water and sewer. It allows them to spread their fixed. It just makes it more efficient for everybody. So some of these entities are on the unit assistance list for really deep structural reasons, and some of them are on the list just because of the economic exposure that could happen to them at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Is Shelby, I mean, anything in particular about your county or the water and sewer district or city, Dustin?
Well, Kingstown was one of the towns that were part of that initial designation for the viability utility reserves.
Yeah.
So I was really curious if like just specifics of what issues they have or were found with their system that was,
Yeah.
I guess, brought it forward.
Yeah, and we, there are 1,300 entities that could turn their keys into us. 100 counties, 540 cities, 550 cities, water and sewer districts. All the local government commission looks at the issuance of debt on hospitals and universities, and all these things. Obviously, with 40 people working in the local government commission, we don't have a parking lot big enough and we don't have enough people to accept all these keys. Today in the local government commission, and I hope some people are still on the call, we will be getting debriefed on expending money to put up Christmas lights in Eureka. So when you take over a town, that's some of the decisions that are coming before you. A month from now, we'll be debriefed on how much it costs to take down the Christmas lights. What you do about Christmas bonuses for the 9 employees. I mean, everything that you can think about that it takes to run a town when the LGC takes it over, which we don't want to do ever in any situation. That's just an example of how granular we have to be because these things are still happening. And that's why we want to work so closely with the County Commissioner Association, Paul Meyer, the League of Municipalities on this historical charter. Very simply, what's an historical charter? There's some of these communities that are just not viable financially. And to give them we don't want to push this on anybody. We want people to gravitate toward it, to magnetize toward this as an option. But the historical charter basically allows them to go to a timeout phase, number one. They can continue to call themselves what they've always called themselves for decades, if not centuries. And it sort of puts the charter in a freezer. So if a big auto manufacturing plant were to come and plop down in that community one day, they can ramp the whole charter thing back up. But we just feel like that we need to be giving people an option about how to keep their local identity in terms of what they call themselves, but the function of collecting property taxes and providing government services needs to be distributed to other folks.
Dustin, I'll try to see if I have some additional information. There were a variety of criteria that went into the selection process, and maybe I can find something more specific for Kingstown for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
We're just waiting for any other questions. If Ginger, if you've joined us, I don't know if you're on yet or not, but if not, if no one has any further questions, we can go to some final comments from the treasurer.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all of you, Lynn, Julie, and Dave and Dustin for joining us. And we are keepers of the public purse. This money doesn't belong to anyone but those that teach, protect, otherwise serve, and taxpayers like them. And we feel like to be transparent is the most important thing that we can do, in addition to being loyal and exercising a duty of care to those individuals in every way, shape, and form. And I want to leave by reminding and maybe introducing to you the concept of the missing place setting. There are a lot of people in our state who someone has always sat at a certain part of the table over the holiday period, and that person is never going to be there again. Some of it's related to COVID, some of it's related to killed in the line of duty as a police officer, deputy sheriff, in Ryan Hendricks' case. So for whatever reason that anybody on this call or your readers are dealing with that grieving process, for many people in this state, this will be the first year where somebody's not at that place setting. So as we move forward, I wish you all a happy and a safe holiday, and to keep all these folks that I just mentioned in your thoughts and prayers.
All right, well, with that, assuming there's no other questions, we'll conclude, and thank you very much for participating.